Episode 2 of House of the Dragon has just released with all the political intrigue and 12-year-old matchmaking that would make even Chris Hansen's head spin.
Hey, how are you? Good. Why don't you have a seat right over there?
This is a massive deep dive into the episode, how it connects to the books and lore, but don't worry, there won't be any spoilers. I'll save that for a separate video. So grab your dragon and find out why my girlfriend left me because I've been spending too much damn time analyzing this show. Before we get into the episode, I do want to talk about the intro credits. If you want to skip this part and get right into the episode, I've left a timestamp below, but I'd recommend you stay because there are some really cool things here. So how do you follow up Game of Thrones, which had one of the most iconic intros ever? Well, you make it kind of similar, utilizing the same music and art style, but instead of us venturing across a map, it's that of a family tree. The Targaryens, to be exact. We'll see that the blood we follow represents the literal bloodline of the Targaryens, flowing through that giant model of old Valyria we saw King Viserys working on. We start with the first chronological event, the Doom of Valyria. You can see these dragons with ripped wings and this giant cracked building in the back. We learn this episode that Valyria was built on the face of a volcano, and during the Doom, a great cataclysm basically turned everything to ruin. After the Doom, the first circle gives way to blood, leaving only the crown, Aegon's crown, the first Targaryen ruler. In the wide shot near the end, you can see how the blood splits into three distinct branches, signifying King Aegon I and his two sister wives, Visenya and Rhaenys. Now this Rhaenys depicted here is not to be confused with the queen who never was. She won't be born for another 100 years or so. Now we know this is Rhaenys by this cog, which appears to be a dragon with a spear through its eye. Rhaenys' dragon, Meraxus, was shot by an iron bolt right through the eye, which killed both the dragon and its rider. Following downward is the son of Aegon and Rhaenys, Aenys the First. Now, I think his name is pronounced Aenys, unless it's of course Anus, in which I'm very sorry. Aenys had 6 children with Alyssa Valerian. Perhaps this is why we see his line branch off. However, the camera follows us to Jaehaerys I and Alysanne, who have a whopping 9 children, which you can make out all the branches here. 2 of the children marry, Balon and Alyssa. Balon was set to be king, but died before Jaehaerys did. With no living sons, this is what spurred Jaehaerys to call the Great Council, where the Lords decided to choose his eldest grandson Viserys as next in line instead of his granddaughter, who had a more legitimate claim. You'll see Balon and Alyssa's blood break in two, one for Viserys and the other for Daemon. Now, they did have a third child named Aegon, but he died before his first birthday, which might be why it isn't included here. As we continue, Viserys and Aemma marry. Notice Viserys's doesn't turn to blood like Aemma's. That's because he's not dead. Throughout the intro, you'll also notice some cogs far off in the distance. Some of them I weren't able to make out because of the resolution of my video. However, there's one that looks an awful lot like it could represent Corlys Velaryon. So my guess is that these cogs on the periphery are members that aren't directly in the Targaryen line, which leads us to Rhaenyra. Now this symbol here of these 3 intertwined rings is really interesting because it's the same symbol found on the necklace Daemon gave to Rhaenyra in episode 1. Now I won't spoil anything, but the camera opts not to follow what happens after Rhaenyra. Rather, it flies through a ruin which depicts 2 dragons fighting with various houses on either side. This is a reference to the Dance of Dragons, an event which will shape Westeros so deeply it has implications for the events we'll later see in Game of Thrones. So that's it for the intro credits. Let me know about what you thought about them in the comments below. Now on to the episode. To the southeast of King's Landing are the Stepstones, a chain of islands that separate Westeros to the west and Essos to the east. This is the area Corlys Velaryon, the king's master of ships, warned him of last episode. A Myrish prince, Craghas Drahar, also known as Crabfeeder, has taken to routing out pirates who have long since plagued the islands, but as we'll find out later, this expedition is not without its casualties of war. Corlys has already lost 1 ship, and Crabfeeder's rule over the area could jeopardize his lucrative trade routes, something that allowed House Velaryon to become the richest in the realm, after the king of course. The books never go into detail about Crabfeeder's appearance, so this whole scar and mask aesthetic has been imagined for the show. I love this transition from the blood of the battlefield to blood red wine filling the king's cup, a cup filled by the king's cupbearer and official heir to the throne, Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen. As As we'll find out, the events of this episode take place roughly 6 months after episode 1, so some time has passed since the death of Aemma and Daemon's departure from the capital. Easy to miss is the king's brief condolences to House Redwyn on the passing of Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Sir Ryan Redwyn, who we saw briefly last episode. He passed of natural causes, and Sir Harold Westerling has now taken over as Lord Commander, but that means there's still an empty spot in the Kingsguard, which is composed of the realm's 7 finest knights sworn to protect the king and royal family with their lives. Sir Ryan's body has been collected by the Silent Sisters, who we've actually seen in the very first episode of Game of Thrones, surrounding the body of Robert Baratheon's Hand of the King, Jon Arryn. They're not to be confused with the Septas, or female priests like Unella who rang the bell of shame. These sisters take a vow of silence, which you can see their mouths covered by cloth here. With a spot on the Kingsguard needing to be filled, the king asks his daughter to choose an appropriate knight. After all, this knight will end up becoming her personal guard. When Corlys suggests they take out this nuisance that is Crabfeeder, the king is yet again wary of war. As Lord Beesbury reminds them, a war with the Free Cities would come with incalculable losses. Still, the king has sent ships to Pentos and Volantis in the hopes they may find common cause should things get out of hand. However, the king still does not see Crabfeeder as a huge threat. Another non-concern for the king, at least for the time being, is his brother Daemon. The king ordered him to return to his wife, Lady Rhea Royce, in Runestone. This was an arranged marriage that was set by their grandmother, Queen Alysanne, and he has no real love for this woman. Daemon has disobeyed the king's orders and holed himself up in Dragonstone, where he calls himself the prince and rightful heir. The prince or princess of Dragonstone is commonly a title only reserved for the heir of the throne. Hence, when Rhaenyra arrives to chew out her uncle, she refers to herself as the princess of Dragonstone. Later in the episode, Daemon will invite his brother to his wedding with Mysaria. It's not without precedent that Targaryen ancestors could take more than one wife. In fact, King Maegor had 6 wives. Rhaenyra chimes in and suggests they could use their dragons, but this out-of-turn remark is shot down by her father. If Rhaenyra is going to become queen, one day she must learn her place.
You will learn.
In the courtyard, Rhaenyra must choose a suitable replacement for Sir Ryan, and Otto has handpicked a number of candidates. I like the nice little touch of Rhaenyra needing a step stool to appear above the banister, a visual representation for how much she still has to learn. In front of her are 7 knights from various houses, from left to right: House Caron, Mallister, Corbray, Rowan, Crakehall, Cole, and Tarly. I hope this Tarly wasn't the same one who got completely decimated at the tournament 6 months ago. You'll notice that Sir Criston Cole here is the only one without a bannerman. This could be because he is simply the son of a commonborn, a steward to Lord Dondarrion. You might remember Beric Dondarrion from Game of Thrones is a descendant of this house. Watching from afar is Princess Rhaenys, the queen who never was. She'll later share some choice words with Rhaenyra about how the realm really works. Rhaenyra is only interested in Sir Criston Cole, the man who bested her uncle at the tournament and to whom she gave her favor to in Episode 1. He is the only man in the group who has actually seen real battle, a trait she believes necessary in order to become a member of the Kingsguard. However, one can't deny that there may be some romantic interest here as well. Sir Criston fought against the Dornish incursion, one of the 7 kingdoms, which at this time in Targaryen history has not been fully conquered. It won't be until another 70 years or so until Dorne bends the knee and officially comes under Targaryen rule. Otto gets a taste of Rhaenyra's stubbornness when she chooses Sir Criston over other knights who may have been a better choice politically. It's a little warning that she may not be as easy to control as her father. Viserys works on his hobby, modeling this giant recreation of the capital of Old Valyria. He's kinda like that guy who's really into trains. He tells Alicent that just like Dragonstone, the capital was built on the face of a volcano, close to the source of their magic and power. Whether we'll ever see Westeros harness the amount of power that Old Valyria did before it was destroyed by the Doom is yet to be known. However, the breaking of one of his models is not the most positive foreshadowing. Alicent makes an effort to repair the relationship between Viserys and Rhaenyra, telling both in separate conversations that they should make an effort to open up and talk to each other. Since Aemma's death and Rhaenyra's announcement as heir, the two have drifted further apart. At a sept in King's Landing, not to be confused with the Great Sept of Baelor we saw in Game of Thrones, which hasn't been built yet, Rhaenyra expresses her concerns over being being heir. Not only is her father being pressured to wed and have new heirs, but she feels being chosen as heir had more to do with spurning Daemon than it did with her being wanted for the job. At its core, Rhaenyra wants to be seen than more than just a little girl. In the gardens outside the Red Keep, Corlys and Rhaenys set the stage on why it's more important than ever to show the realm is strong. The queen has passed, a girl has been made heir, the king's brother has claimed Dragonstone without challenge, and a foreign power has established a colony in their most critical of shipping lanes. Fun fact, when the king refers to Rhaenys as his favorite cousin, it's kind of a joke considering she's his only living cousin. Corlys suggests the best way to show this strength is for the king to wed their 12-year-old daughter, Laena, a match that would link the two strongest houses of Westeros and prove to the people that the kingdom's strongest days are ahead of them. Both the Grand Maester and Master of Laws, Lionel Strong, approve of this match. Laena is the eldest daughter of the richest house, made of unimpeachable Valyrian stock, and also has Targaryen blood. Otto, of course, has his reservations, as he's been quietly scheming to get his daughter closer to the king. The king's finger also seems to be suffering from the same mysterious ailment we've seen on his back. Both his back and finger were cut from the Iron Throne, and nothing seems to be healing these wounds. It really becomes a metaphor for how the throne is both literally and figuratively killing him. In what I found to be the most disturbing scene of this episode was the king and 12-year-old Laena's walk through the garden. The king can easily see that this poor girl has been coached by her parents on what to say. We'll later find out that Rhaenys hates this match too. Seeing your 12-year-old wed to an old man who's your cousin isn't exactly every mom's dream. Unless, of course, we're watching an episode of Honey Boo Boo. She even had to tell her daughter that she likely wouldn't have to bed him until she was 14. Creepiness aside, there's some interesting talk of dragons here, mainly that of Vhagar. For those of you who have read the books, you'll know why this is important and why Laena is bringing this up. Vhagar's whereabouts are currently unknown, but rumors suggest she lives somewhere on the coast of the Narrow Sea. Rhaenys and Rhaenyra have a rocky relationship. There's probably some resentment here from the queen who never was, since Rhaenyra will have the chance to be queen when she never did. But Rhaenys' warnings, however biting they may be, are practical. The king will be forced to wed, likely have a male child, and that child will become king. Even though lords from across the realm swore fealty to her, Rhaenys reminds Rhaenyra,
"Men would sooner put the realm to the torch than see a woman ascend the Iron Throne."
At dinner, both Viserys and Alicent are nervous. Viserys plays with his food and Alicent picks at her fingernails. We saw her do this multiple times, including at the tournament last episode. Alicent has a special gift. No, it's not her virginity, it's something even better, his repaired dragon. Although I was joking about the virginity thing, it's heavily implied that before Otto goes off to Dragonstone, that he instructs his daughter that tonight is the night for her to make a move in the king's bedchamber. She is super nervous about this, as you can tell by her fingernails, which Otto remarks on. Otto is oblivious to the anxiety and stress he is putting on his daughter. An emergency small council meeting is called, where a dragon tamer reports that Prince Daemon has taken a dragon egg from the dragon pit. The dragon tamer refers to it being stolen during the Hour of the Bat. In the world of Game of Thrones, there are several of these named hours, with that of the bat being just after sunset. Mysaria is with child, and as is tradition, the egg will be put in the cradle for this future Targaryen. Rhaenyra wants to know which egg her uncle took, and it just so happens to be the same one that was chosen for her brother's cradle. This is an egg from Dreamfire, who we haven't yet seen in the show. With it being deemed unsafe for the king to ride off to Dragonstone, Otto, along with Sir Harold Westerling and Criston Cole, confront the prince. He is to relinquish the egg, disband his army, composed of loyal Goldcloaks, banish Mysaria, and leave Dragonstone. But Daemon doesn't give up that easily. He even calls Sir Criston Sir Crispin. In Daemon's mind, he hasn't done anything wrong. He has the right to take a new wife. It's tradition to take an egg for his child, and Dragonstone is the home of his ancestors. There was this great line where Daemon proclaims that Mysaria is to be his wife, but she looks at him like, "I never knew that." As we'll soon realize, both the wife and child claim were a complete bluff. The standoff appears to be at a standstill until Rhaenyra arrives arrives on her dragon, Syrax. She reminds her uncle that Dragonstone is hers and that if he wants it for himself and to be restored as heir, he'll need to kill her. Of course, Daemon's not a monster and he stands down, throwing the egg to Rhaenyra as if it's nothing. It's important to note here that the writers aren't trying to portray Daemon as a senseless monster. There is some humanity to him and he does love his family.
Daemon's a complicated guy, but he's not a monster. I mean, this is his family. He does love his family, he particularly loves Rhaenyra.
I actually think Rhaenyra earned a lot of respect from her uncle here. Remember that Daemon thinks his brother is weak, and Rhaenyra showing this amount of strength proves that she'd one day make a great queen. As Rhaenyra flies off on her dragon, we get this brief shot of Otto who's like, uh-oh, this could become a problem. Mysaria tears into Daemon about what just happened. Her entire life she's been a pawn of men and thought being with Daemon would be different. Using her as part of his lies has only confirmed that Daemon is just like the rest of them. Mysaria tells him that she, quote, ensured long ago that I would never be threatened by childbirth, which I took to mean that she did something so she could never have children. In the books, she actually is pregnant with Daemon's child, but loses it during a storm on the Narrow Sea after being forced to return to her home. Perhaps this change was done to show just how duplicitous and cunning Daemon is, so I'm really curious where Daemon's relationship with Mysaria will go after this big difference from the book. With Mysaria's statement that she hoped Daemon would liberate her from fear, it'll be interesting to see what he plans to do to rectify this relationship. In a special meeting with Lionel Strong, Master of Laws, the king gets his opinion on who to wed. Laena, in Strong's opinion, is the clear choice. While the scene doesn't offer anything really new about Viserys' options, it does reinforce how difficult a decision this is and how almost everyone around him supports it. Minus Otto, of course, who never explicitly states an opinion on the matter. This will be Viserys' second huge decision that will go against what the other lords of the realm would want, the first being his decision to name a female as heir. Rhaenyra is brought to her father to answer for her dangerous antics at Dragonstone. Notice here that she is now being guarded by Sir Criston Cole. Viserys was dreadfully worried about his daughter, his only heir, and for the first time in months, the two actually have a beneficial conversation where they each talk about their feelings and how Emma's death has affected them. Viserys tells her that Emma's absence is like a wound that will never heal, an apt analogy considering he now has two physical wounds that won't heal. The most important line here, however, is that Viserys has no intention on replacing Rhaenyra as heir, which I implied as meaning even if the king does have a male heir with a new queen, that Rhaenyra will still become queen. This obviously will ruffle a lot of feathers should this play out. The scene ends with Rhaenyra understanding that the king's first duty is to the realm, and she's fine with him taking on a new wife. The king overlooks his realm, the weight of the decision he's about to make clearly on his mind. He has chosen Alicent as his queen and to marry before spring ends. It seems Otto's plot to position his daughter near the king during his greatest time of need has paid off. Of course, Corlys is pissed and leaves before he says anything that could get his head chopped off. So too does Rhaenyra. Both her father and best friend never told her about any of this. For Rhaenyra, it's got to feel like a betrayal, and now her best friend is going to become her mom. At what is likely Driftmark, the home of House Valyrian, Corlys has a secret meeting with Prince Daemon. You can see just how close Driftmark is to Dragonstone. It would have been a quick flight for the prince to make. Corlys talks about how the Valyrians have a greater claim to Westeros, arriving there even before the Targaryens, but the Targaryens had something that always made them superior, the dragons. He propositions Daemon to join forces and venture to the Stepstones to take on Crabfeeder. It's a mutually beneficial alliance. Corlys gets to protect his vital shipping lanes, and Daemon can prove his worth to anyone who may doubt it. The episode ends with this great juxtaposition of Crabfeeder and Daemon, hinting at the clash of these two princes to come. Now, there's still a lot to talk about in regards to this episode, and my plan is if HBO releases a promo video for next episode, for me to do a breakdown of that where I'll include the book spoilers. You'll want to be subscribed with the bell on to be notified as soon as that drops. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember...
It's a Crispin, wasn't it?